Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Wake Up Missoula. I'm your host, Scott Ramp. It is Friday the 13th, June 13th, here in the city of Missoula, and we're going to talk about everything that's happening within the city of Missoula. Kicking things off is a neighborhood council report by Robert Schultz from the Rattlesnake neighborhood, decrying that there are a lot more people up in the Rattlesnake than there used to be.
It's two subdivisions going on in, perhaps, up on Greeno Drive. They've both been in the works off and on for years, I know, but it looks like at least one of them on Cherry Gulch may make some progress. We are concerned that if both of them go in, we're talking between 60 and 70 new residences. With that, we're probably talking 100 more cars. There are only two egress points from the Rattlesnake, either Greeno Drive or Van Buren Street, so we worry about the emergency evacuation issues, and then just the amount of traffic, people trying to go up to the Waterworks Hill trailhead. There could be issues for them depending on where they put the road for this Cherry Gulch subdivision. But even without that, just the additional traffic and backing up, if we have a train on the Madison Street crossing, there could be cars all the way up, backed up all the way to Lolo Street, potentially, we think.
All right, and he also decried that the noise from trains' air horns are, people are struggling living next to the train tracks. This and many other issues regarding parking issues during the peak university sports seasons. Recreation on Mount Jumbo is up, and this is one of the few things you can do to get closer to the city council and be part of a grassroots organization. There's always neighborhood councils. You can go to ci.missoula.mt.us for more information about your neighborhood councils, Riverside, Franklin to the Fort. I'm not going to name them all, Northside. While the topics of the city council focused on the lighting district for this particular meeting, they talked a little bit about this, but for the most part, they're looking to expand the light district, which essentially takes a section of Missoula and then creates, street lights. And essentially with this, they tax the zone where they put the lights in, hence the lighting district. District is anyways, I'll explain a little bit more later, but here is Troy Monroe talking a little bit more about this lighting district.
The 2019 consultant report showed a significant cost savings in ownership of street lights compared to leasing them. Additionally, the report showed there could be improved response time for repairs, a more uniform lighting standard, and more consistent coverage throughout the city under ownership. And the city could regulate the amount of maintenance for the street light system. We have shown the historic lighting districts and the need for street lighting, so let's get to why we are here. When the city of Missoula created the Missoula City Public Works Standard and Specifications Manual, we required street lights to be installed with new development on arterial streets and to evaluate street lights on collector streets. Through subdivision review, all subdivisions in the Mullen area adjacent to collector and arterial streets were and are being conditioned to install streetlights. 3 of those 5 subdivisions have recently installed the streetlights. They are now operational. Herring's Landing, adjacent to Chuckwagon Drive, McNett's Flat along George Elmer Drive, and Hellgate Village along Mary Jane Boulevard. A total of 12 streetlights have been installed.
All right, and so there's definitely a lot of things happening in terms of that. And, not the most glamorous topic, but was one of the few utilities that the city took vested interest in as a whole, see about improving partnerships with the private industry and retain public utilities for the public good. Frankly, the privately owned business feels more like a placeholder than any actually investing any extra money into the system overall, especially when it comes from a very large holding company that controls most of the lighting and electricity in Missoula and Montana, and basically the Pacific Northwest. But anyways, as we go further into this, let's see, what do we have here? Wait a minute. Oh, I thought I had his quote, but weird. I swear I had his quote somewhere, but I guess it wasn't in here. Okay. Anyways, It's like I was saying before, the lighting districts are ways of breaking up the tax burden from the larger body for more localized targeted areas like the ones mentioned before, and through the process it will create long-term payment plan to invest in these lights. While the city handled the consent agenda like they always do, we dive into public comment on some of the initial reactions a week later after the city of Missoula rectified the pride flag as an official city flag. And so here is Susan Campbell Renault with her opposition against the pride flag.
I oppose your decision last Monday to make another flag the official flag of Missoula. No other flag, especially any flag that symbolizes a controversial topic or political viewpoint, should ever be flown above any official government building with it that represents all Missoula residents. I would oppose a do not tread on me or a MAGA flag, as well as any flag that excludes other Missoulians, since the flags that officially fly over our government buildings are those that represent all Americans, and the other flags represent minorities. I would passionately express to you that no strong political statement through any flag should be deemed official for the city of Missoula.
All right, so that was the opposition on that one. I mean, the government represents the people, and Missoula has overwhelming support for people who are often marginalized by this growing movement that seems to be targeting minority populations as scapegoats into consolidating power. You know, look at LA. You know, it's kind of growing crazy down there. That stuff is getting wild with images of Mexican flags next to burning cards. Not to mention with roughly a couple days ago, there's like 200 protesters, but there's over 4,000 National Guard members protecting ICE members. So it is interesting, but I'm not going to get into it right now as we're jumping into Christian Jordan. City Council reflects on the legislature's bill that created this movement for the pride flag to come into fruition. So here's City Council member Christian Jordan.
We had a legislative session that actively tried to pass laws that specifically targeted our LGBTQ plus community and labeling them as sex offenders and pedophiles, which is inherently untrue. And I'm really happy that we are taking a stand as a city. And I know I've talked to you a little bit about local control. And I think this is also a really good example of local control where Missoula City residents have spoken and the state has told us that we shouldn't do something like this, but in an effort to maintain some form of local control, we are deciding to have the pride flag be one of our official flags. And for both of those reasons, to protect a very marginalized and vulnerable and targeted community and to also maintain local control in Missoula City, I'm really happy that we made that decision. Thank you.
Yep. So in a lot of ways, yes, this is a politicized political statement to the state of Montana against that House bill that passed that basically only picked and chose certain flags as opposed to other flags. So, you know, that the state of Montana passed a law that was, it's in and of itself a political statement, along with Missoula, which did their own thing. So it's very much like both are doing the political statement, so there we go. We're kind of in an impasse now. So before we wrap up, we had a pop-in with a local celebrity in the city of Missoula, Mark Kega, who was a weatherman out of KECI for many years before he was acquired by a right-wing corporation that would counter to his beliefs as a gay man. And he basically talks about how the pride flag here in Missoula, rectifying that as a official city flag has meant to him.
I just want to sincerely thank you all for making the pride flag the city flag. And I know some people don't agree with it. To me, a rainbow flag represents all people, heterosexuals, gay people, you know, everyone, not just the LGBT community. So may I give you something? I want to give you a band. I don't have them for everyone.
Yeah, please go ahead and give it to the officer and he'll make sure he hands it out. Thank you.
Missoula, 26 years, and this is by far the coolest city in the country. The only other, Lawrence, Kansas comes close. I think that's where I might retire, but this is I remember being in this room in 2010 when I think Missoula was the first city that added non-discrimination, sexual orientation to the non-discrimination ordinance. This is a cool city and you guys represent wonderful people. So, thank you.
All right. There you go. There was Mark Haka, former weatherman here in the city of Missoula. And of course, it's always nice to see him. While we have a pause in breaking news, fire dangers is high, and officials are recommending that you curb fire pits and campfires going into the season of drier than normal and higher temps this year. Up next, we have some committee meetings. Committee of the Whole looks to change the way we do primaries in Missoula for a set date of September 9th for mayor, the city council, and judges in Missoula. Mind you, Missoula has been primarily mail-in only for those smaller elections since 2007 and has seen an uptick and increase in voter turnout by proxy. So Claire Trimble, Claire Trimble, city clerk, talks a little bit more about this right here.
Is that for offices that have someone filed and where there are 4 or more candidates, it is required to have a primary. So what will happen is filing for municipal offices ends today at 5 p.m. If anyone's listening and wants to run down to the elections office and file, you can still do that till 5 p.m. today. So we do not have at this moment while I'm talking to you a final count for the what candidates are running. We have a lot of openings on our ballot this year. We have mayor, because the current mayor is filling a 2-year vacancy, and so that is open for a 4-year term. 3 municipal judges seats are open. We have 1 candidate in all 6 wards for a 4-year term because we do a 2-year rotation between the 2 seats. And then we also have an additional seat open in Ward 6, filling the vacancy that was created when the last election resulted in a tie. And according to Montana state law, a tie is considered a vacancy. So we have 11 openings out of our 16 elected officials. So
yep, so a lot of people are going to be voted in this next coming election. And that's the weird wiggle room, and the state law requires a lot of finagling. And the mayor of Missoula has been tumultuous because of all the additional elections that were made. There was a city council election to appoint a mayor right away, and then there was the follow-up election to fill out the rest of the vacancy, fill out the rest of the term of John Engen. So by the end of this year, is it this year or next year? By the end of the year, essentially, it is coming up this year. Yeah, the election is coming up. It's coming up pretty close for mayor. But yeah, this is. I'm losing my train of thought. But the idea that this is the actual election for mayor outside of John Engen's term. So it's going to be like the 3rd election for this particular seat within the last 4 years or so. So overall, this is meddling in something for the sake of clarity, and I'm pretty confused regardless. Saving $200,000 for a primary is, it's a good choice, and ranked choice voting is becoming more common in many other states. Montana tried to do that, but then determined that, the primary, by creating more than 50%, the whole idea is that they want to, primaries give a little bit more control to the parties, while ranked choice voting is a different thing, where, if you get more than 50% of the vote, you win, but then if you don't, then you have to go into a follow-up election with the top 2 contenders for official election, which technically it's kind of like the primary becomes the main election, followed by semifinals kind of thing. Anyways, let's move on to a little snippet from Public Safety and Health, which spoke about renting office space for the mobile support and crisis intervention teams. This is through the fire department. This is created through the ARPA funds, and then furtherly funded through the firefighter levy that was passed last year. And this is going to be roughly $1,000 and $1,600 a month for both teams. And this will run congruently from July 2025 till 2027. Will they consider up for renewal, or they move somewhere else? So this is just to expand the space needed to use these services that are funded through grants and the firefighter levy. And the meeting was less than 10 minutes long. Housing redevelopment and community planning is going through the motions to have Ravara Project's daycare obligation be removed from the planning. Dale Bickle spoke about this.
The city acquired this in 2020. as part of as a site that was difficult to develop, hadn't been developed in years, and a significant barrier was the state Superfund designation. And since we had experience with our public works facility, we had the unique opportunity to be able to help take on some of that risk. We were able to find a development partner in Good Works Ventures and their entity Ravara that is able to help us meet a bunch of these goals. So as a reminder, this is especially on the CLT side, the 3 acres, that the focus of the construction that's happening today is the biggest home ownership, affordable home ownership opportunity in state history, with 89 ownership opportunities, and 47 of those will be income restricted. And so that's one thing that was really important to mayor and council during this process, is to create these affordable ownership opportunities, because there are really there aren't a lot of tools available out there between federal and state programs. And so
All right, so it's hard for me to keep up with Dale because he does a lot of run-on sentences. So a lot of good things coming from the Ravara project, and as I said, like, if this is geared for folks who are making 120% median income for a two person household. They called it vertical construction as addition to the TIF funding infrastructure. And Nagorski from Missoula Redevelopment Agency spoke about those funds and the space being used.
If you recall, the tax increment revenue bond that council approved for the project also included an allocation to acquire a new park on land for a new park on North Scott Street. That's shown up there in the green. That's surrounding the Resurrection Cemetery Association cemetery. So that's RCA land, along with the small purple square, which is a half-acre piece that will be complete the city's acreage there north of Rogers Street.
All right, so these are just the initial plans moving forward for a lot of these things in a lot of spaces. This will also work with Mountain Line to help improve and expand transportation in the north side beyond the Route 3 neighborhoods with those additional green spaces. Donna Glocker, Parks and Rec, spoke about the daycare and some of the services that Parks and Rec have already been doing as on top of other organizations that have taken up the mantle of taking on daycare responsibilities.
There's a reason we don't have enough daycare. It is a huge capital cost if people aren't doing it in their homes. It is a huge time commitment, and it doesn't pay a lot, and families can't afford a lot to pay for that child care. And so there's multiple challenges here, from capital to operating to demand and need. If there is a path there at some time in our future where the city says, yep, we're going to spend $1 million or $2 million, and we're going to build a facility that we're going to condo, and we're going to do it right from the start. If we could do that early on and bring in somebody like MCCA, that might work. I just want to commend, though, while I get my opportunity here, Kai from Ravara, because all of the times that I've been working with him, looking at a small community center or looking at it from a child care perspective, he's been really responsive with numbers and costs and flexibility and design. So I want to recognize that for his.
All right. So I'll also show up Kai, the guy behind the Ravara project. Child Care Advantage through United Way has been the kind of daycare co-op which helps support former Cold Spring schools, which benefited through the MCPS transition to Janet Rankin Elementary School. That and Parks and Rec involvement with a 3 to 6 p.m. period, which has seen a higher demand for school-age children who often go unsupervised for those hours. And, part of the argument against daycare, unfortunately, is the idea that, you have a 2-income household, and then one of the incomes, because childcare costs are getting more and more expensive, and as a result, it's like, imagine you work at a job and you barely, and the money that you make from that job can barely pay for the daycare, and then you're kind of missing out on that. So it's kind of like one of those weird catch-22s where just like, you want to work, you want to earn money, you want to contribute, but then the daycare costs, practically eliminate a lot of your the money that you make that month, but you still have just a little bit more money that you can have. And yeah, it's like, I don't want to create that argument about like, somebody should be a stay-at-home parent, but at the same time, it seems like with childcare costs going up so high, those are some of the issues moving forward. And not to mention, because those childcare costs are so high, a lot of people are reluctant to go into those childcare facilities. So the idea of developing and putting your money where your mouth is a little less because of the interest in there. But that, that's Keel Hallstetter with Good Works Development, partner with the Ravara project. This is kind of his response to this whole thing. And logically, the only reason this is such a big deal is because this is public-private money that they're working with. So they want to make sure their contracts are ironclad, so there's no unnecessary wiggle room. So there's a lot of bureaucracy in place that changing one thing requires process. And so this is Kia.
Between city staff, other nonprofit partners, we've been able to drive this thing forward. We still, as the developer, have Herculean tasks in front of us as it relates to the new market tax credit project. We have 5 months to put that entire market hall package together and get permit approval through development services, which is not, on current timelines, it's pretty unfeasible. And so we have a lot of things that we have to navigate to bring the commercial piece out of the ground. That includes the neighborhood scale grocery store, potentials for co-working space, food and beverage, across the board. And so we're ready to get after it, but we also, if childcare was going to be a part of this, we can't approach new market tax credit allocation groups and say, there's going to be childcare and then there isn't, or adding that back in and being a part of the project budgets. We can't have the waffling between it.
Yep. So imagine you getting a loan from a bank for a car and then you decide to buy a bike instead. A lot of that can be very interesting as comparative to something as big as this project. The developer game is met with time and money. The longer it takes, the more money it's going to cost. And overall, they believe that daycare is a risky endeavor and want to consolidate their resources for guaranteed commercial use of the site outside the daycare requirement. Makes sense? Also, the cost savings will impact the residents. Imagine residents paying for a failed daycare. It seems like the city is convinced this is the best course of action moving forward. So they move forward on this as they continue talking about this more and more, and they'll move it forward to the Monday's meeting. I believe it's going to be talked about on the 23rd. But Climate Conservation Park is working on Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Plan, otherwise known as PROST, and Donna Gockler is up again to talk about PROST, and this is what she had to say about that.
Right at the end of our timeline, we're just now a week and a half from public hearing and hopeful adoption. The plan was made available on May 13th, but we've been working on this for about 20 months. And this is just an outline of how to read the plan. For those of you who haven't read it, it goes from purpose and background to creating the plan, Parks and Recreation Today, and analysis. Looking at community needs, we took a very deep dive. The PROST overall goals and objectives to our recommendations, and then how we get there. We are absolutely applying the strategic lenses and the strategic pillars of the city. We looked at everything we do, and the community reaffirmed for us that climate sustainability, resilience is critically important. Equity and opportunity and access to local government resources and lands continues to be of prime importance.
And of course, one of the things that she also brought up in that background and presentation is the fact that with higher density housing, green space is more important than ever. Access to parks and how they plan in conjunction with the city of Missoula's growth policy and heighten open space land for the sake of public access protection of Missoula public lands. She has spoken after decades of service to the community and noticed this plan has worked more cohesively with other departments involved with a growing Missoula than ever before. Zach Covington with Open Space and Parks UNREC talks more about the master plans based on a third-party survey, and this is what he had to, some of the results.
Residents' top 5 supported policies include making sure parks are safe, protecting and improving clean air and water, making sure out-of-school time and youth programming exists and is improved, and continues to provide critical services for our community, that neighborhoods are walkable, and universal accessibility was a huge theme throughout the entire plan. As a recreation programming highlight, 80% of respondents strongly or somewhat support ensuring families with children have access to out-of-school, after-school, and summer programming, and there's strong support for programming for adults of all ages, including seniors.
Yep. And, you know, some of the adult programs are kickball and softball, to name a few. Not to mention pickleball, it's a big thing. Donna Gockler reflects on their assets for the good of Missoula and just talks about some of the stuff that the Parks and Rec have offered Missoulians and people just passing through.
You do have a good, robust park system with trails. I don't think we can build enough of them. Swims, we know the importance of swimming based on our conversation this morning and trying to get the 50-meter up. Acres of conservation lands, and of course you heard about trees from Climate Smart and the importance of childcare at an earlier meeting this morning. According to the National Recreation and Park Association and U.S. metrics, we did a comparison of cities our size, similar demographics, and we fall above the national average in services provided and below the median in park budget per capita. So I like to assure City Council and our residents that you are getting a good bang for your dollar.
Yep. And, you know, the state wants to get rid of park fees overall. So that's one of the things I definitely wanted to bring up at the end. As the city grows, the Parks and Rec Department is really pushing for an all-seasons community center. You know, Donna Gockler is a Midwesterner. They have community centers geared towards recreation year-round rather than seasonally. You know, Missoula has Missoula Currents, which is like one of the indoor water park, indoor pool. Anyways, another area is making sure that the green space is keeping pace with population and development. One thing that they also mentioned during this thing as well is that they're trying to figure out like having green space and park space intermingle, where they have more natural environment mixed in with some of the traditional park space where you have playgrounds, clean grass, you know, and then trails and access. So they're trying to figure out best ways to kind of create a hybrid middleman model to create this where you have natural parks, where like Bancroft Park is a perfect example of a natural park. Bonner Park is your more typical city park where there's a lot of more maintenance. And yeah, Bancroft is kind of like one of those parks where they're just like, they don't have to do much maintenance. They might do some clear cutting every couple of years, but nothing really extensive, as in just making sure the trails are clean, which, you know, they offer, you know, teenagers jobs through Parks and Rec over the summer, clean out some of the trails, you know, even working at Splash, Montana, Currents Aquatic Center, just a lot of Parks and Rec opportunities for seasonal workers over the summer. Donna Glocker also talks about what they need moving forward.
A 10-minute walk or roll to a park is what residents consider convenient access. And when we talk about 10-minute walk, we're talking about average walking speed for an 8 or an 80-year-old. And the roll means with an adaptive device. So we're not talking about somebody getting on a motorcycle and being able to roll there quickly and calling that a 10-minute.
So yeah, that's their ultimate goal, is just have a park available for anybody in Missoula within a 10-minute walking distance. And whether you like going out or not, the options are there to encourage use of open space, and Missoulians tend to favor outdoor spaces. Northside is among some of the areas of Missoula that lacks park space because of the industrial sites. Regardless of that additional space acquired last couple of months, that is currently in development for a park. Mind you, 2014, Missoula was falling behind park land for residents in the national average, but with new parks from Fort Missoula to Railroad Link Park, to name a few, many of those efforts being decades long have created a pathway to this point where government in Missoula has been running smoother than any other time with the Parks and Rec Department. June 23rd is when the 20-month process will be presented to the City of Missoula on a Monday meeting, and that will wrap up your City Council report. And to learn more, you can go to engagemissoula.com, where you can find all the PROST, the Parks and Rec Master Plan, and then for everything else, go to ci.missoula.mt.us. And this is a big deal because this is what's going to affect how parks and things grow up until the 2045. So this is very much like how a downtown master plan works with the city zoning and everything like that. This works with how the green space and trails and parks work in conjunction with. So with that, I'm going to move on to my next topic, where I'm not going to take a break or anything like that. I'm just going to jump right into it. We're going to talk about some movies that are coming out this weekend. It's time for Pre-Critic, where I prejudge movies based on absolutely nothing about my biases towards movies. This movie I actually saw just the other day, How to Train Your Dragon, the live-action version of a beloved franchise. Sounds like Disney, but enjoy the non-Disney animated starring a bunch of live-action actors trying to do their best to convince you that you can train your dragon, while technology was there for the original. Those movies don't get a chance to make it big because new ideas are a risk, and they want to make a movie guaranteed to make money, and regardless of being able to come up with some more about this movie, we'll focus on the business. Family movies are a shoo-in for making lots of money because you're not just taking yourself, you're also taking your kiddos and Disney adults who like to dabble in DreamWorks, kind of like Gen X versus Boomer kids. Then we got Materialists, which is honestly, you might as well just call this a Hallmark original movie with a bigger budget. So essentially you got Matchmaker, played by Dakota Johnson, and she's basically, like most white women, are pining after Pedro Pascal, who happens to be in this movie, and he's everything you could ever want. He's charming, he's handsome. He's also a rich guy who spoils this girl to death. But unfortunately, she's not the old school boyfriend that come right back into matchmaking CEO Dakota Johnson reconnects with a long-lost love, played by Captain America himself. So these movies tend to always go for the hunky poor guy who is also an underdog, and the rich guy shows his true colors. And the lady is just like, I never liked him anyways, and then ends up with one of them or the other. Or most notoriously, what's been going on a lot of like those bigger, high budget movies is that she'll pick herself. And yeah, that's basically what you can expect from that movie. The Unholy Trinity. I thought this was like one of those kind of like conclave type movies, but the poster basically decries that it's essentially just another Western. You got a town with a bunch of people just trying to live their lives, and then a criminal comes to town basically saying that there's treasure in this town, and then everyone wants the treasure, and then everyone goes crazy. Good people go bad, bad people get worse. And then we have Pierce Brosnan, who seems to be liking to work with a lot of legendary actors like Samuel Jackson, where they're going to be working on this movie counter to each other. One's a criminal, one's the sheriff of this town, and they got to stop each other before it's too late. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a shootout, both people die, or, that's the kind of thing about the more modern Westerns, where it's like the good old guy has one last shot to change the game and sacrifices himself, or at great risk of himself, to defeat the bad guy, and then everything kind of, goes fine, or just, Western movies, they don't really do the happy endings. They just, ever since The Searchers with John Wayne, it's basically been like, well, I'm just going to walk out into the distance. That's it. And then that's basically the end of the movie. It's kind of become kind of a bummer in a lot of the Western movies since then. But up next, we have a new dub and stuff for you guys from the 1956 movie, The Desperate Hours. So when I come back, we're going to talk about some events and other things happening in Missoula and Montana.
And then we can go to the park, and then we can go drawing, and then we can go, Papa, what's wrong? Papa, I know you spent my college fund on that brand new $1,000 suit.
It isn't quite like that, son. This was an opportunity. I just thought I could...
Well, you weren't the first person to sell out my future. Mom took all that money when she left you. But you just couldn't keep one Beanie Baby? Even one single Beanie?
That's enough of it. There was no point in keeping the Beanie Baby collection once Diana was destroyed.
But weren't you going to let me play with it? Like kids are supposed to play with toys and stuffed animals?
Listen here. When you become an adult, you start to look into the value of things, and toys have certain values to certain people. So why we keep these kind of things is potentially to sell to those people to be able to get money from those people.
So does gold not have value?
Well, technically, gold has value based on what everyone agrees to have value on, and then we trade it accordingly. I can imagine that some places don't.
What is it? What are you trying to tell me?
Well, a group of people in power decide what is worth something, and then they convince the rest of the population that it's actually worth something, so then therefore...
So people buy into it? Well, that's really stupid. How can people believe that?
All right, we're back. Let's talk about some events that are happening in and around the city of Missoula this weekend. When you go out and about, open air opening of Mine at the Missoula Public Library is an exhibition inspired by the Upper Clark Fork ecosystem showcasing here at the Missoula Public Library. You guys can check that out. This is usually on the 4th floor of the Missoula Public Library, but at the same time, they also have some art installations on the 3rd floor next to the reference librarian. This exhibit titled Mine explores themes of place, extraction, ecology, and personal connection to the land. This will also be the 4th floor of Missoula Public Library through July 28th. This exhibition will conclude with a closing reception and panel discussion featuring artists and representatives from the Clark Fork Coalition reflecting on the experiences and role of art in engaging environmental narratives. A lot of landscape artists and folks like to use Montana as a backdrop, and many other places as well in the West. Local Missoula walking tours at Destination Missoula. You can explore like a local. This is a big thing that's happening for a lot of tourists in town. They usually have like scavenger hunt for folks who can jump to different businesses, collect stamps, and get some prizes through Destination Missoula, maybe even a gift card. So there's some good fun things happening this summer as well. So be on the lookout for some of those. Tiny Tales is a reading event here at Missoula Public Library. It happens every Friday for kids who are learning to read or just want to experience exposure to books. Lunch at Missoula Senior Center. This is something that happens daily, Monday through Friday. Basically cheap meals for anybody who's looking to get a hold of the Senior Center. They also have a thrift store in their basement. Yarns and Watercolor, 12 noon every Friday at the 4th floor of the Missoula Public Library. You can also look at that art by the Art Gallery Mine. Map reading and compass navigation, lifelong learning center classes. So this is starting at 1 p.m. this afternoon. Map reading and compass navigation is a class that is being provided. They have many other classes. Learn a trade, learn a skill, heck, even get your GED, Lifelong Learning Center. Bookmobile at the Missoula Food Bank. So this is a big event that's happening at the Missoula Food Bank. It's going to be all kiddos-centric event featuring MCAT, where we're doing a stop animation outside for the kids and a fun family event starting at 3 o'clock, and it will be in the parking lot at the Missoula Food Bank. So while that's happening, The Little Mermaid is going to be performing at the Missoula Children's Theater at 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. tonight as the summer season is kicking off. A lot of these summer camps happen, and these are week-long summer camps where the kids rehearse and act out their play every Fridays throughout the months of the summer. So this is all the local area MCT stuff, while MCT, the Little Red Trucks, are going to be traveling to all sorts of regions in the United States and internationally for children's theater stuff. So good luck to those guys and have fun doing those shows. And they're going to be featuring The Little Mermaid, written and reproduced through Missoula Children's Theater, not to be confused with the Disney's Little Mermaid. Summer Lego Club. This is adjusted hours at Missoula Public Library every Friday at 4 p.m. Legos on the 2nd floor of the Missoula Public Library. Second annual Queer Under the Big Sky at Frame of Mind at 4 p.m. This is at Moretz at the Moretz Travelers Plaza 50th anniversary. Oh, wait, no, this is something different. But no, they have a second annual Queer Under the Big Sky at Frame of Mind event that's happening in conjunction with Pride Month. Check that out. And then another event at Moretz Travel Plaza 50th anniversary party. This is at 8800 Truck Stop Road. They're turning 50. This is featuring music by Maggie McDonald and Showdown. Food trucks, beer gardens, bounce house, and pony rides. Cornhole tournament at 5:30 p.m. Fireworks at 10 p.m. Saturday for the Power Rally. Dirt drags, sled pulls, and more. It's family-focused event. There's the 2025 Backcountry Brew Fest. This is weird. Oh, huh? Okay, sorry about that. That's weird. Why is this? Okay, some of the information is weird because, anyways, Backcountry Brew Fest at 5 p.m. and it says downtown tonight. Regardless, starting tonight at 5 p.m. at Caris Park, Backcountry Brew Fest. But yeah, I also wanted to mention on Thursday we had that ribbon cutting for the Cares Park Terrace, which is the access point to get to Brennan's Way for people who have mobility issues. So little bit of information on that, but let's go back as we're talking about the BHA North American Rendezvous. The backcountry hunters and anglers for the 14th Annual American Rendezvous. This June, they're headed back to their roots in Missoula, Montana. Secure your spotting experience iconic events like the Wild Game Cook-Off, Public Lands and Water Celebration, Brewfest, and more. Whether you fly solo or bringing the whole crew to this family-friendly event, you won't want to miss this gathering filled with new educational seminars, hands-on demos, and some of your favorite outdoor icons. Tango Dance Party at Montana Moonlight Studio at 6 p.m. Clay Studio is doing a pottery date night at 6 p.m. Blind Melon is going to be performing at the Wilma Theater. They're independent ska-type music. The Waiting is going to be featured at Monk's, playing some rock music. Karaoke at the Jack Saloon at 7 p.m. Miscast is doing an original play by Jane Best at 7:30 p.m. at the Zootown Arts Community Center, otherwise known as the ZAC. The Carlisle Family Band is going to be at the Old Post tonight at 8 p.m. Bo Akimo is going to be playing some music at Union Club, and Joe Martinez Band is going to be at the Sunrise Saloon at 9:30 p.m. All right, Saturday markets and such. So on your Saturday, farmers market is in full gear from around 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. That's going to be fun. That's always ongoing. There's always some events that are happening congruently and ongoing. For the kids golf tournament, the Boys and Girls Club of Missoula County are going to the Highlanders Golf Club for a day on the green. That's about more than just golf. It's about fueling futures. Every swing supports the mission to help children with the confidence and tools they need to thrive. And this is all in support of the Boys and Girls Club of Missoula. Heritage Timber open hours and vintage sale. This is in Potomac, Montana at 8 a.m. This is roughly, they're spring cleaning after 31 years of deconstructing hundreds of buildings around western Montana, and have relics from iconic buildings like Missoula Mercantile, the Bonner Mill Dam, and so much more. Enjoy deals, steals, and lumberyard micro-occupying tours, games, drink snacks, integral tables, and more. I totally butchered that last word, but they will be selling antique barn doors, gates, windows, hardware, stoves, so much more antique hardware, door prizes for everyone. So this is heritagetimbermt.com for more information. heritagetimbermt.com for more information. Father's Day car show at the Missoula Valley Senior Living. This is starting at 9 a.m. Makerspace walk-in hours at 10 a.m. here at the Public Library. Line dancing at Missoula Senior Center at 10 a.m. Story time at Missoula Public Library at 10:30 a.m. on Saturday. Garnet Day, so the Garnet Ghost Town is hosting a immersive Old West Day at the Garnet Ghost Town. This day is designed to give families fun Wild West experience in one of Montana's most intact ghost town, 35 miles east of Missoula. Parking is very limited, and it's a little bit of a trek down there to the old ghost town. Museum tour at the MAM, as always, at 11 a.m. SLP kickoff summer concert with Cowboy Andy and the Salamanders at Missoula Public Library at 12 noon on Saturday. This is crafts and fun times at the library parking lot. Poor weather may move the event inside, but we've been seeing a lot of warm weather. We did get a little bit of downpour the other day, as you can see from the wet street. I literally took that after I left the downtown area Thursday afternoon, and it dried up pretty much an hour or two later. So just so you guys know. And as always, MCAT hosts our Saturday drop-ins every Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m. here in our studio space right here in this space where we do my show. Bookmobile at Animeals at 1 p.m. And yep, the Bookmobile, Missoula Public Library is going to be there. Garnishing some support. You're going to be seeing a lot more Bookmobile announcements throughout the MissoulaEvents.net. So summer learning program, altered books and free book giveaway at the Missoula Public Library at 2 p.m. This is a one-of-a-kind work of art, or simply take some great free books home. They'll supply a wide variety of books and magazines loaded with art supplies, music, creative encouragement, and welcoming space for all ages. This is drop in between 2 and 5 p.m. and let your imagination take the lead. D&D Guild for Teens at 3 p.m. This is Dungeons and Dragons for teens at 3 at Missoula Public Library. No King's Day Rally at the Plaza near the Red X's. It's going to start at 4 p.m. This is opposition to everything that Trump's been doing up until this point. And so this is also on Saturday is the day of Donald Trump's 79th birthday, which he'll also be hosting his own military parade in the D.C. area. And this parade is to protest that, and it's part of a national movement. So check that out. St. Paul and the Broken Bones and the Wood Brothers at Kettles Amphitheater at 6 p.m. Cordelia Rose birthday jazz masquerade at Monk's at 7:30 p.m. on Saturday night. Sundog North is going to be at Bluegrass playing Bluegrass at the Old Post. Joe Martinez at the Jack Saloon is going to be at the Blues. Is going to be at the Jack Saloon. It's also 406 is going to be at Dark Horse at 9 p.m. Karaoke at Westside Lanes. Tomcats at Union Club. Suns 406 is going to be the Sunrise Saloon. DJ Chris Moon every Saturday at 10 p.m. at the Batlander. And then as we start on Sunday, they're always looking for volunteers at the Native Plant Garden at 9 a.m. until mid-July, starting at 9 a.m. on Sundays. Rally for Public Lands. This is at the University of Montana. It seems like it's going to go on over. So from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. in Missoula, for a bipartisan high-energy rally celebrating our shared commitment to protecting lands, water, and wildlife. Joseph at the Wilma playing some folk music at 7 p.m. on Sunday night. Open mic comedy at VFW at 8 p.m. Karaoke at Sunrise Saloon at 8:30 p.m. on Sunday to wrap up everything you need to know about that. Looks like I'm getting done in record time, so I'm going to jump right into some news items that are happening. Let's see here. Let's see. Okay, so a lot of the big things have been happening this week. A lot of craziness going on there. LA versus Trump, but you're getting plenty of coverage online over the place. But the deployment of National Guard and Marines operating in the regions will cost upwards of $130 million for the 60 days they plan to be occupying that region. Not to mention the idea that there are roughly 200 protesters that were there 2 days ago, and now it's going to be roughly 200 protesters, 300 depending, in an isolated area near the immigration office where ICE operates. So roughly there's 4,000 National Guard and 700 Marines, as it was said in the news. So a lot of interesting things going on there for sure. But yeah, think about it like this: 4,700 military personnel against 300, 350 protesters at any given time. So, look at those numbers. So anyways, also breaking news in the world today, Israel is officially attacking Iran, prompted by growing fears of nuclear weapons developed in the region. So they did a preemptive strike, those kind of things. They've been saying all this kind of stuff online as well. So that's things that are right now fluid and ongoing. So we'll talk a little bit more about what's happening here locally in the state of Montana starting right now. The state of Montana will be using $67 million towards renewable energy. This biofuel plant in Great Falls is eligible of upwards of triple the amount of those in terms of tax credits. This is in terms of a settlement released to the public information request by Montana Free Press show that an additional $42.9 million in equipment will be eligible for tax exemption. In total, Montana Renewables will not pay property taxes on $67.4 million worth of assets at the plant. This does not actually count towards new items and new assets that they acquire over the next couple of years, but they are able to reapply in the future with a lot more benefits of tax exempt stuff. And these plants are important and essentially to make fuels out of plants, the ethanol, the kind of stuff that have shifted. It's it's definitely one of the very expensive. I think I don't want to misspeak, but from what I got from the article, it was like a $500 billion industry just to create the biofuels. And unfortunately, don't expect the greenhouse gases to be any less, as reports total emissions at the entire Great Falls plant were at 427,371 tons in 2023, the highest amount of EPA's published data for the location since 2010. And the fact they're getting tax credits, and there's looking for potential for expansion, those greenhouse gases are moved to increase. And in the state of Montana, there was another one for the pro-choice movement in Montana, as an old ruling from the 2021 court ruling restricted abortions at 20 weeks was struck down by the Montana Supreme Court. If allowed to take effect, the bill would have curtailed abortions after 20 weeks, added regulations to medical abortions, and required providers to offer patients the chance to view the ultrasound and listen to a fetal heartbeat before filling out the state-written form about their decision. So they created a lot of hoops for a lot of women to jump through before they are allowed to get abortions. Planned Parenthood of Montana sued to block the legislation from taken effect soon after Governor Gianforte signed the bill into law, and there's been litigation since 2021. So although this was a very specific hoop they required patients to jump through, the larger issue of the person's personal freedom was up for debate as the Constitution leans in favor of an individual rights, but that Constitution was also used to create a personhood with a young unborn child. So the playbook is simple. If you cannot repeal, you make it harder and harder to create regulations that restrict those clinics into oblivion. It was clear a couple of years ago that it requires a certain amount of paperwork and bureaucracy just to be able to run a clinic, which ends up costing them even more money as a result to run and operate based on the legal precedent that was presented through the state of Montana. So it is very similar to health care in general, which rather than repeal and replace, the erosion of health care gives permission to create a new way of ruining the old ways that have worked for so long. Delaying has been one of the latest attempts to run out the clock in some states that have the heartbeat law, and not without getting into too much detail about the Georgia vegetable case. An Atlanta woman considered brain dead must give birth to what doctors claim is an already lost cause in their fetus, but the heartbeat law in the state prevents the termination, and in some ways a weird twisted gray area. So Adriana Smith is 30 years old and is currently on life support and pregnant. Back in Montana, acknowledging that the right to privacy is not absolute, the ruling laid out an established legal test from past precedent to find whether a restrictive abortion law is constitutional. Among other factors, the court said the state had failed to demonstrate that the law at issue would protect pregnant patients from bona fide health risks. I mean, the state put it to the voters in 2024 under CI 128, where the majority of people voted against abortion restrictions. Well, that was worth noting. One thing has the state up in arms: increased prices of Northwestern Energy. According to Montana Free Press, an issue at the company's ability to recover its investment on electricity and generation infrastructure, such as the 175 megawatt gas plant in Laurel, Montana, has come online last fall. Upgrades to its hydroelectric facilities and an expanded and upgraded transmission system. Both the return on investment was 10.8% and the electricity-based revenue required $156 million. Northwestern is seeking to sustainably higher than utilities' last round of rate hikes the PSC authorized, which resulted in a 28% cost increase for the average residential consumer. But mind you, in 2023 saw their taxes go up by 20%, so you can imagine being a little bit triggered by this. So Montana Consumer Council attorney Jason Brown told commissioners during his opening remarks that Northwestern Energy shouldn't be allowed to use its captive ratepayers for a backstop for needless, risky, and questionable decisions, pointing out the multiple lawsuits, cost overruns, and delays as examples of the risk that would shouldered by Northwestern shareholders rather than its customers, who are unable to shop around for services from other utilities. This alleges that the power company has not gone through the proper channels to the Public Service Commission, which is an elected body that regulates power utilities in the state of Montana. Northwestern Energy claims that $300 million investment to the natural gas will have a tremendous amount of natural gas generation coming out of the nation's grid now into the future. Northwestern and a number of intervening parties already reached an agreement for a 9% increase in its natural gas rates, which is forecasted to raise the average residential monthly bill by $4.74. Whew! Mind you, most of the time a company invests at the cost of the ratepayer, they get more money and the rate never goes down. So you know what isn't going up? Flathead Lake. Current forecasts show that the lake will reach a maximum of 2,892.3 feet by June 19th, and then beginning to slowly recede. The full pool of the lake is 2,800 feet. And just so you know, they essentially lost 0.7 feet from last year. In the Flathead River Basin, just 59% of the average for the beginning of June compared to 83% of this time last year. The Kootenai River Basin is at 49%. The Upper Clark Fork is at 65% the normal average. The Jefferson is at 66%, and the Upper Yellowstone is at 63%. So a lot of halves going down in terms of the amount of precipitation in those areas. And the Bitterroot Basin is just at 27% of normal, much like 2024 when 56% of the state was classified as experiencing drought. This year, 82% of the state is experiencing drought conditions. Fire dangers as high in Montana, and fireworks are going to be going on sale within the next week or so. A lot of factors are being put in play this summer as fires are a win and not necessarily an enough. So on the note, we're also experiencing heightened fire danger on the 4th of July holidays, which will see sales and fireworks within the next couple of weeks. I just repeated that. But regardless, the Madison River coming out of the Yellowstone National Park is now reaching a historic 1931 lowest point, with flows at half of the usual, and like Big Hole, temperatures already approaching 70 degrees in the water. It's so high that the grayling trout have basically had a lethal point with this particular one. And according to the Daily Montana, Dearborn River, which drains, is now basically snow-free. Rocky Mountain front is already lower than it's been in 55 years. Likewise, the Sun River, which is a stunning 1/14 of its usual flows. With water temperatures rising, the grayling trout are reaching their lethal point of more than 70 degrees in the water. For more information, you can go to waterdata.usgs.gov to see all this data presented to you right then and there. So that's it for me. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. MCAT, we have a lot of workshops, a lot of things to help people get engaged. We have editing workshops, we have podcasts. We also have our morning radio show that we do, not Monday morning, but it's Monday more like noon show. And so every Monday, me and Neil, my coworker here at MCAT, does a MCAT Mondays every Monday at 12. So we just do this from 12 to 1. And then the replay plays Monday nights at 11, and then Tuesdays at 5:30 p.m. And then this show, of course, repeats at 2 in the afternoon for your guys' viewing pleasure, and just kind of giving you an overview of kind of what's going on in Missoula. So without further ado, I want to thank you guys for joining me, and for Wake Up Missoula, I'm Scott Ramp. Take care.